entrepreneurs. Okay. So I've been an entrepreneur pretty much throughout my career, mostly in technology, and the last decade or so, uh, did a lot of work with the ecosystem, with entrepreneurs, and you know how I led up to storytelling and why it's so relevant for all of us. So as I was working with entrepreneurs, over the last decade or so, as part of TIE, I've been on the board of TIE Daily, NASCOM, as Ankita mentioned, I started the Deep Tech Club at NASCOM and, worked with the Emerging Companies Forum and product initiative, other initiatives. One thing I saw that most entrepreneurs struggled with was, no, we would all feel so passionate about our own product, our own offering, our own venture, but we would always be puzzled why others didn't feel that excited, right? So how do I communicate? How do I convey how I feel about my own product? Why am I so excited about it to my audience, right? Because unless I can generate that passion, I can't really get the results I want, right? And why not? If you're doing something, you're dedicating your whole career to in a way. Why is it that others are not feeling that excitement? And that led me to storytelling. Storytelling is all about conveying that emotion, conveying that passion, conveying that, exciting the other person's imagination. Okay. So this thing came about by, practicing for myself. Then I was, as I was working with entrepreneurs, coaching, mentoring, I found myself helping others with this kind of an issue. And then I said, this is something I really want to learn for myself. And as I started to learn for myself, I realized this is really a deep science. There's a lot here, which, I started to do different sessions like this session for different forums, to the extent where today I'm building a technology platform which helps companies large and small actually implement this for themselves. Okay, so I'll talk about that very briefly at the end, but let's first talk about what the hell, why storytelling and what is storytelling? Okay, so we'll start with the basic question that I'm sure you've all asked yourself. What is the most important skill I need for building a venture? Is it that I need to be able to raise funds? Is it that I need to be able to build a product, build a team, to sell, generate revenue, to lead others? What is the most important skill? Okay. And guys, here's the interesting thing. Sorry. These guys would stop bothering us. Most interesting thing is you are all in the influencing business, which is all about sales. Whether you're raising funds, whether you're building a team, whether you're building a product, you have to influence others. You have to get others convinced about your idea, your venture, to take action on it, right? And that's all about sales. And of course, sales is about sales. Even leading is about sales, because leading is about having others believe in me, having others follow me, right? So the most important thing that you all have to do on a daily basis is sell. Okay. Now, has this happened to you where you had the better product or better idea or better solution and the other person won? It feels really bad, right? And trust me, I've been there more times than I care to imagine. Okay, so realize that not only is sales uh, an, uh, an, an important building block of your venture, it's something you just cannot avoid. Because if you are not good at selling, it doesn't matter that you have the best product, the best idea, others won't buy it, which means you will lose out, right? And there is no points for being second best. Either you're the best or you're not. you may not even exist, right? So how do you make sure that you get the recognition, the value, the love, the success that your idea, your product deserves? You have to get better at sales. Okay. Now, in order to sell, let's just go back to what does it take to sell, right? And again, let's turn to the best. Let's learn from the best, right? And there's plenty of very good thought leaders in how to sell. My favorite one is this framework or this sales coach called Zig Ziglar. Some of you may be familiar with it. He's written many books. Um, the famous one is of Closing the Sale. Decades old book, uh, proven, old proven framework, and it still rings true today. So what he talks about is, why do people not buy from you? So he talks about 5 necessary conditions to make a sale. Now, understand these are necessary conditions. Means if even one of them is missing, your sale won't happen. Okay, sounds very interesting, right? And it's a fantastic framework. So let's just go through it. The first he talks about is there's no need. Well, no, that's obvious, right? If the other person doesn't need what you have, they're not going to buy it from you. So we all understand this, right? Essential, but we understand. Let's move on. The next he talks about is no want. Now, here's the interesting thing, right? That usually we use these terms interchangeably. Need, want, what's the difference? Thing is, they are different. And not only are they different, but as per Zig Ziglar, they're both necessary, right? They're both different and they're both necessary. So what's the difference between the two? And I think if you give it a little bit of thought, you all will understand. Need is about something that is essential for me. Want is about, I can live without it, but I want it, right? The need is about logic. It's about necessity. Want is about desire. It's about emotion, right? Need comes from the brain. Want comes from the heart. Yeah. So need is logical. Want is emotional, right? And you have to have both. Next, he talks about no hurry. What is no hurry? If you've sold for a living, you've come across this. This is when a customer says or prospect says, everything is fine, but come back next quarter. Right? I'm busy right now. Let's talk later. Right? This is when they are not saying no, but they're not saying yes either. They're just pushing the sale down. And actually, this is a very tough one. Because what do? Right? And actually, no hurry is the most, well, it's the trickiest one because A, you don't know what to do about it. B, you don't even know if that person genuinely means it. If they're just deferring it because they're not convinced, or if they're deferring it because they genuinely have something else going on. And it kind of puts you in the freezer, right? Because if it was a no, you can move on to other prospects. If it was a yes, you try to move on to the sale. But no hurry is you kind of stuck in between. So this is the number one killer for entrepreneurs. This is a very difficult situation you have to work your way around, right? Or we also call it no urgency. If you've heard people say sense of urgency, there's no urgency. This is what they're talking about. We'll come back to this. No money, right? If they don't have the budget, if they can't afford it, yeah, we understand this, right? We can't sell a Ferrari to somebody who's just, you know, uh, starting their first job. So no money, yeah, we understand this. Let's move on. The last one he talks about is no trust. Now, the funny thing about no trust is if they don't trust you, will they tell you? So if they don't need your product, they might tell you. If they don't want your product, they might tell you. They don't, no hurry, they'll always tell you, come back later. But if they don't trust you, will they tell you? How will you find out? And the way this manifests itself, usually, and I see this with a lot of entrepreneurs I work with is, I go to the prospect and they come and ask me for information that I've already given them. They come back and ask me for an analysis they don't really need. right? They'll ask me for a tech architecture. They'll ask me for some ROI analysis. They don't really need that ROI analysis. What's missing is trust because they can't tell you to your face, I can't trust you. Right? They may not even realize it, but they're uneasy and they say, okay, maybe I need more information and they ask for it. Right. So no trust is another weird one, which you kind of get stumped on because you don't even know often that it's a lack of trust, right? But it's an essential one. Think about it yourself. If you were buying something, would you buy something from a person you don't trust? So then why would somebody who doesn't trust you buy from you? And then which begs the question, how do you win their trust? Right? That's the $1 million question. We'll come back to it. So now the interesting thing is this is a fantastic framework and there's apply this to your daily lives. You will find that this really helps you when you sell. Okay, just everything aside from this, what you learned from this session. Now, interestingly, we understand no need, we understand no money, right? Where we get stumped on is no want, no hurry, and no trust. Okay, now the want and trust is essential. Okay, and we understand need comes from the head, we understand how to do that. Want comes from the heart. Do we understand how to create a desire? Do we create how to create a want? Trust comes from both. I can trust somebody because I know them, because they have credentials, they have a history, or I can trust somebody just, sometimes you say, I look at somebody and I say, I can't trust this guy. And there's no logic to it. Right? So sometimes it comes from feelings, from heart. Now, the tricky ones are matters of the heart. So just like everything else in life, even in building our venture, when it comes to matters of the heart, we get stuck, right? So the most important thing you have to remember is when you're selling to someone, the humans you're selling to, they're not thinking machines. They're not logical beings. They are emotional beings. So we are all feeling machines that also think, right? In fact, I would amplify that to say we are feeling, imagining machines who also think, right? So when we sell, we kind of pretend we're selling to a very logical person who is all about data, all about logic, all about ROI. But reality is most of our decisions are made by our feelings, by our imaginations. And when we sell, are we really talking to their feelings and to their imagination? Right? And if we don't, we are not really using the powerful selling techniques. Make sense? And how do we sell to their emotions? How do we sell to their imagination? Welcome to the world of storytelling. That is what is storytelling. Storytelling is emotion plus imagination plus insight. So it's feelings, desire, imagination, excitement, what I can imagine your product will do for me, and insight, which is the logic which supports my emotion, my imagination. Guys, this is the E equals MC square of sales. If you can figure this part out, you will be very successful at sales and therefore very successful at entrepreneurship. Okay, so we'll get to how in a bit, right? There's a little bit of trick involved here. But before we go there, don't take my word for it. Let's hear it from Vinod Khosla, who is as techy as they come, one of the most successful people in the venture world. Let's hear what he has to say.
Act of doing something large. Probably the thing that entrepreneurs miss the most is after you have the facts on your side, it's not good enough. You have to do storytelling.
It's a very powerful statement. And we just unpack it. And there are three things he says in this. The first, he says, probably the thing that entrepreneurs miss the most. Okay, so this is where most entrepreneurs get stuck. Okay, and I've been there myself. So welcome to the gang. Second thing it says is after you have the facts on your side. So you have to have the facts, which is the logic, the ROI, the features. You have to have the best product. You have to have a good business case. Okay. Nothing I'm going to tell you helps you sell a weak product. You still have to have a good product. You still have to have a good business case. Okay. But after you have the facts on your side, it's not good enough. You also have to do storytelling, right? So you have to have a great product, you have to have good business logic, but then you also have to do storytelling, which is about emotion and imagination, right? Now that we've understood
Of
this,
doing something large.
right? So storytelling is the key to persuasion, right? Which now begs the question, how do we do this? How do we build a story? Okay. And you know what? I'm not going to tell you. I'll show you. I'll show you how you build a story. Okay. And the trick is to be customer centric. Okay. And again, this is something we've heard forever, right? Be customer centric. Build a customer centric venture. Build, think customer centric. What does it really mean to think customer centric? Right? Let's distill it down to basics. So, guys, what we will do today is take some concept that you've heard of many, many times and just go back to basics and simplify, understand what they really mean. What does it mean to be customer centric? So, usually when we talk about a product, how do we describe it? And I'll tell you how most entrepreneurs do it and how I used to do it. Okay? We all start to talk about how great a product is. We might talk about the features, we might talk about the benefits, we might talk about the tech stack, we might talk about, hey, it uses AI, it's amazing, right? Is that being customer centric? No, no, no. By definition, that's product centric. Customer centric means we talk about the customer. Okay. And the best way to talk about the customer is you make them. So basically, you talk about the customer. This is the framework I'm going to give you. You think of the customer as a hero of a story. Now, think of any story, any movie you've seen, any story you've read. There is a hero. What defines a hero? The hero is on a meaningful and challenging quest. Okay, so they have a quest, they have a goal, they have a mission, right? They want to do something. Usually it's a meaningful, a noble quest. You don't want a hero who says, my goal is to become rich. If you saw a movie and one person said, my goal is to become rich, the other person says, my goal is to create a better world. Which of the two is the hero? And which of the two is the villain? We instinctively know the person who talks about themselves is the villain. The person who talks about the world is the hero. So what do you want to be? What do you want your customer to be? Don't talk to them about money. Talk to them about impact. So the hero is on a meaningful quest. And it has to be a challenging quest. If it was something easy, they won't be a hero, right? A hero doesn't take on easy tasks. It has to be something challenging, something difficult. So first we have to figure out who our customer is, who our audience is, what is the challenging quest they are on, what impact they're trying to create in that world. And I'll come to this. I'll talk about a framework, a very structured way of doing this. But this is the gist of it. This is the formula for storytelling. Okay, now you'll say, great, I'm going to talk about my audience. I'll make them the hero of a story, right? Fantastic. But I want to sell a product, right? Where does my product fit into this? So the last thing you want is to create a customer-centric story and not have your product featured in it. Okay. Where does your product fit in? Okay, let's think about it. Every hero, my customer is a hero, right? Every hero deserves a superpower. Let's make our product their superpower. Okay, the hero needs a superpower to overcome challenges, to create, overcome challenges to create an impact in the world. Our product enables them to do that. Now think about it. If you can do this, you've got their heart, you've got their desire, you've got their imagination. They're already imagining overcoming the villains in their world and creating a better world, right? And they will fall in love with your product because your product is their superpower then, right? So this is our goal. This is what we will try to achieve, right? That's what storytelling is all about. How? We'll come back to it in a second. But before we proceed, let me show you what a great story looks like. Okay, and this is like a superb story, right? So we'll look at some other examples as well. But let's start.
मेरा नाम नूतन है। सुंदर नगरी में मैं रहती हूँ। मैं बिंदी बनाती हूँ। मेरे 4 बेटी हैं। मैं तो अपनी लाइफ नहीं बना सकी, मैं तो बिंदी में रह गई। मेरे बच्चे पढ़ लेंगे तो अपनी लाइफ बना लेंगे। बच्चे पूछते मम्मी कैसे, ये क्या है? मैंने बेटा मैं पढ़ी नहीं हूँ, पढ़ी होती तो मैं जरूर बताती मैं आपको। मेरे बच्चे पढ़ नहीं पाते थे, सिखाती स्कूल में से बहुत आती थी, पर ट्यूशन भी नहीं पढ़ा पाते बच्चों को। किसी टाइम जो होता पैसे नहीं होते घर के अंदर। ये अनुराधा दीदी है ना, वो एनजीओ में जो काम करती है, ये घर घर पूछ रही थी आके, बोल रही थी ये ना एक ऐप है जो मोबाइल में डाउनलोड करोगे ना तो इसमें ना बच्चों को बिना नेट के पढ़ाया जाएगा।
तब मुझे नीचे जाना ही पड़ता है। अब तुम पढ़कर सुनाओ।
तब मुझे नीचे जाना भी पड़ता है।
शाबाश।
मेरे बच्चे भी पढ़े तो बहुत खुश हुए। मम्मी जी तो बिना पैसों के भी पढ़ाई हो रही है इसके अंदर।
मैं जल्दी घर जाना चाहती हूँ।
बहुत बढ़िया।
मुश्किलें हार गई जब बेटियों ने दी चुनौती।
तो जब से बोलो ये जो शुरू कराए तो मेरे बच्चे अच्छा पढ़ रहे हैं। मेरे बच्चों का आत्मविश्वास बढ़ चुका है। मम्मी हम भी तुम्हें कुछ बन के दिखाएंगे।
छोटे से बड़ी भौलिक इकाई।
कुमकुम मेरी डॉक्टर बनना चाहती है, छवि मेरी पुलिस बनना चाहती है। मेरे बच्चे कुछ कर लें तो उससे अच्छी बात क्या है।
So this is what we call an empowerment story, and I'll come back and talk about what that is. So basically, it's about empowering your hero to overcome challenges and achieve their goals. So in this, very simple structure, right? And just get away from the production value from that it was a well shot video. You can build these stories in any form, and we'll see other examples of it. The idea is you have a hero who is very identifiable, who has a noble goal. She has a goal, she has 4 daughters, and she wants a better life for them, right? And she has a challenge, right? She doesn't have money, she doesn't have access to good education for her daughters. She's looking at possibly another a bleak future for them, till she comes across this app, this product, right? And this becomes a superpower for them. And now they can imagine a better future, right? Her daughters are now dreaming of careers. One daughter wants to become a police officer, one daughter wants to become I forget, doctor, right? And so she's already imagining a better world. She's feeling more confident. That's the power of a good story. By the end of the session, you will be able to build stories like that for your own product. Now, one thing I want to mention in here is that most of the examples I show will be in video format, but that's only because that's easy for me to show. These stories work equally well in PowerPoint, in text. In fact, we use these in emails as well. Anytime you're doing any kind of communication where you need to convey an emotion, convey an idea, you can use this framework. Let me show another example of a tech product, something which may be more in line. And this is a product demo. And the part I want you all to notice is this is a product which, a drone. A drone is something that is fairly commonplace nowadays. And the more important thing you need to look for here is, when is the last time you did a demo and got an applause? Look at the audience reaction. You know, uh, what does it take for an audience to applaud? And then at the end of it, we'll talk about, you know, how the framework plays here.
The spark in my hand, and I press the power button twice. Spark starts looking for a pilot, and now that it recognizes me, it will automatically take off from my hand. Within seconds, I can get the spark in the air. Now, it's flying, but I need to control it. I want to angle it around to get just the right shot that I want. So to do that, we designed an interface using the simplest control interface that we could think of. And it's not your smartphone. Take a look. Just using my palm, I can move spark left, I can move it right, I can use it up and down, I can push it away from me, and I can pull it towards me. It's that simple to control, and it truly feels like magic. Now, within this range, I've got about 3 feet between me and the spark, but that doesn't show the epic perspective that drones are known for. So in order to get that perspective, I'm going to tell Spark to fly a little bit further away from me, and I'll do that by waving. Just like that, Spark flies about 10 feet away from me and keeps me centered in the middle of the shot. It's fantastic. So I still want to be able to control my shot. This is maybe not the best background. I want to get those chandeliers captured behind me. So I'm just going to move. And Spark is actively tracking me as I move around so that I can choose the right scenery behind me. All right, this is the shot I want. And I'm going to take a picture just by doing this. Just like that, I've taken a picture. From takeoff to taking a picture, it's seconds. Now, I can still bring it back and land just by waving. This is using gesture control from start to finish to control the Spark's flight. And I'll land it just on my palm. So you can take a...
Okay, so the interesting thing here is, I mean, you saw the audience reaction, right? The interesting thing is, you know, notice how he played out the demo. He didn't talk about, you know, the fantastic technology behind it. He talked about what I can do with it. You know, I wave my hand and I can take a picture, I can move the drone around just by wave my hand. He's putting the user in the shoes of the hero, right? And he's talking about the emotional reaction. It's a subtle thing, right? He's talking about it. It feels like magic. It's fantastic, right? So it's all about that emotion, that imagination, that creates all the difference in the world. Okay, so how do we action it? Let's get to the real meat of it. Now that we understood what is storytelling and why it's so important, what is the essence of storytelling, let's get into how do we actually make it work? How can you do this on a regular basis? Now, here's where the science of storytelling comes in. Now, the beauty is that there is a science to this. We like to think of storytelling as an art, and there is a huge art element to it. There's some people who are natural born storytellers. There's some people who just become good at it by experience. How do you do it on a more structured way? Now, we understand that storytelling is about emotions. It's about imagination. But there's also a structure to it. So it's very much like the analogy I'll give you is, you know, just like you have a roller coaster. Roller coaster is about ups and downs. It's about, you know, taking you on a ride. But do you think the ups and downs are kind of random. No, there is a huge structure, there's a huge science to it. How you sequence the ups and downs can make a roller coaster fantastic or make one boring, right? Or maybe even dangerous. So similarly, when we are telling a story, we are putting our audience on an emotional roller coaster. Okay. Now, what is that structure, guys? And I'm giving you my IP because this is a few years of research, and this is actual IP we use in our platform. Okay. There is a certain science, there's a certain structure to storytelling, which is about you know, the sequence and the emotions. And I'll just come back and talk to you how we implement it. But before, just let's understand the structure. What this is the emotional arc, right? So you start out at a certain level, which is kind of at a neutral level of emotion, and you take them slightly high, then you take the emotion low, then you take them up and down, and you end on an emotional high. So this is kind of the emotional arc of a story. Funnily enough, this arc doesn't change and it works for most stories. um, and let's just take a look at it, and then I'll show you how it actually works. So we start out with what I call the hook. The hook is when you grab their attention. You have to say something in the first few seconds for the audience to say, oh, this is interesting, I better listen, right? And especially in today's world, people are trigger happy, right? You have a competitor for their attention at all times. The moment you lose their attention, moment you, I should say, the moment you don't grab their attention, you're going to lose it to this guy. So you have to grab their attention in the first 3 to 5 seconds, right? After that, what I call the oh shit moment, which is within the first few seconds, first couple of minutes, you have to give them a moment which says, oh, this is big. This is important, right? The stakes are high, meaning I can win big and I can lose big. Then you give them a tease of what could be, right? So if you go back to the story we just saw, that lady with the 4 daughters, it hooks by saying, um, you know, मेरी चार बेटियां हैं, I'm kind of stuck in this life. And there's a huge human interest angle to it, right? And then she says, मेरी जिंदगी तो खत्म हो गई, इनके लिए क्या करूंगी मैं, right? ये कुछ पढ़ लिख लें तो अच्छा रहेगा. So you have that oh shit moment, and then you have a tease, maybe the daughters can have a better life, right? So there's that human interest angle and then a tease. But then she talks about, well, I don't have money, I don't have access, kya karenge, right? So, and unless those daughters get education and opportunity, how would they have a better life, right? So we kind of at that point start talking about what is at stake, what can go wrong, and kind of paint a picture of what can go wrong, which takes us to what I call an all is lost moment. So there is a certain emotional low point that you take them to. Okay, and we saw that in that movie. At which point you introduce your product. Okay, now let me stop here. Instead of taking you through the structure, let's just show you how this works. Okay, now I'm going to illustrate this with, let's take, so I have 2 examples I can use. One is, the age-old fairy tale Cinderella story, or you can see it with, a popular movie, or a Bond movie. In the interest of time, I'll just pick one. Let's just go with Cinderella. How does the story start? It starts with, Cinderella, there's this little girl and her mother dies. Immediately, you've got, your attention is grabbed, right? And her mother's dead and she's in, she doesn't know what her future is going to be. And her father remarries. So suddenly she has a stepmother. She thinks, okay, maybe I have a new mother, right? But that that mother is evil, right? The stepmother is evil. And she has stepsisters who are evil. So notice how things are getting worse. And those evil stepsisters and the stepmother, they torture her. And she ends up like a servant in the family. Okay, and just when it looks like things couldn't get any worse, there is a party in the king's called a party, everybody's invited, but Cinderella can't go. So she's all alone, she's at home, she has nothing, right? She's a servant of the family, she's got nothing to look forward to, no future, no hope, nothing, right? End of the world. And then what happens? Fairy godmother shows up. Now, in your stories, who is Cinderella? Remember, our hero is always our customer. So Cinderella is the hero of the story. We put the customer in Cinderella's shoes. Then who are we? Well, we are the fairy godmother, right? Who's going to help out Cinderella from a tight jam to get her to the place she deserves to be. So fairy godmother appears, and fairy godmother says, oh, here my magic wand. You need to go to the ball? Fantastic. Now here's, bring a pumpkin, I'll make a chariot out of it. So she's got magical superpowers, just like your product. Oh, you need horses? Bring some rats. Okay, here's some horses. You need a dress? Here, right? Oh, and off you go to the ball. Okay, and here's some slippers. Oh, and be back by midnight, right? And so off she goes. And suddenly now things are looking up for her, and she goes there and everybody's looking, and she's like the center of attention. And then the prince looks at her and the prince is dancing with her and the prince falls in love, right? Oh, it's a fantastic moment. And then what happens? The clock strikes 12, right? And things come back crashing, right? And she's back to where she was, but not quite, right? Because she's seen a better life. She's got some hope. She's got some imagination now, right? And at this stage, the prince comes looking, the shoe fits, and it's happily ever after. So you can see how this structure works. We've seen how it worked for that Bolo story. We saw how it works for the Cinderella story. How does it work for your product, right? And we can see it work for most movies. So it's a universal structure that works very, very well. So I'm going to skip this in the interest of time. Let's get to how you apply it to your venture. Okay, because remember, why are we even doing this? Because, like Vinod Khosla said, like Jeff Bezos says, you can have the best product, you can have the best technology, but if you don't have a good story, it won't matter, right? You have to create an amazing story. We talk about how. So here are some essential elements. I'm going to give you a cheat sheet on how you build a story. It starts out with, remember, customer centric. Start with the customer. Don't start with the product. Start with the customer. Start by simple. Who is my hero? Who is my customer? Okay, when you build the customer story, the first question is, what do they want? What is their goal? What is their quest? Why do they want it, right? What is the essential motivation driver? So maybe the customer wants to, do a digitally transform. Well, why do they want to do it? Maybe they want to do it because, there's new technology and they'll get obsolete if they don't do digital transformation. Or maybe it's COVID, right? Because of COVID, traditional business models are broken, and they need to be digitally transformed to succeed, to even survive in this new world. Now, it's important to know the driver because only then can your customer relate to your story. So this sets the right context. Right? What is the downside? So you have to paint a picture of what happens if you don't do it, right? If they don't digitally transform, what happens? Is it that, oh, you will miss out on a great opportunity? Or is it that your whole survival is threatened, right? What is the downside? You have to make sure that the customer feels the downside. The feeling, the emotion will come from here. What are the challenges? What stops them from getting there? So, is digital transformation an issue because they don't have the money for it, the budget for it? Is it because they don't have the capability for it? Is it because, hey, they just need help in defining the roadmap, right? How are you going to help them? So what are the challenges, right? Now you introduce your product. Once you know what is the downside. So this is, if I go back to the Cinderella story, well, this is that all is lost moment when she's home all alone with no hope, right? And this is where your product helps. You introduce your product, the fairy godmother shows up only after the all is lost moment, not before. The number one mistake I see entrepreneurs make in their sales pitches, they start with their product. That's a blunder, because what that says is, A, that tells your customer, I care about myself, my product. I don't care about you. And the customer is saying, why should I even listen to you, right? What's in it for me? You haven't told them what's in it for you. When you start with who your customer and what is their concern, is you're telling them, hey, I understand you, empathy, I care, right? I understand and I care. That's customer centricity, that's empathy. And moment you've said this, they want to know more about the product, because now you're selling them a solution to their problem. Okay. Next is, what is the new superpower you create? So one is, how does your product help? So how your product helps is, if I talk in the Cinderella world, it's, I'll get you to the ball, right? I'll get you to the party. The superpower is, you'll go there as a star. You'll not go there just as another attendee. You'll go there as, in a chariot, in a beautiful dress, as a star, right? What emotional need do you satisfy? So you have to understand, when you sell something, go back to the first question we started with. Why can't you sell? Because if you're not appealing to their emotions, you can't sell. So before you appeal to a certain emotion, you have to understand what that emotion is. So, every product, every need has a certain emotion attached to it. Sometimes you're selling excitement, right? You're selling a product which creates a whole new exciting proposition for your client. Sometimes you're selling the opposite of excitement. Sometimes you're selling control, peace of mind, right? Peace of mind is not exciting. It's the exact opposite of excitement, right? If you're selling peace of mind, don't sell excitement. If you're selling excitement, don't sell peace of mind. So you have to understand what you're doing. Again, I see this mistake a lot, because entrepreneurs try to say, oh, it's an exciting product and I'll give you peace of mind. You can't do both. I can either have excitement or I can have peace. Okay, enough said about that. What is the main adoption hurdle? So once the customer's decided they want your product, what is the adoption hurdle? And it's important to map this separately, because the adoption hurdle might be, okay, I'll have to do a process change. The adoption hurdle might be, I might have to retrain my people. Adoption hurdle might be, oh, I have to create something scalable, and will I be able to scale with your product? So the reason I like to separate this out is because I see a lot of entrepreneurs who start the pitch by saying, oh, my product is really robust and really scalable. Right? They'll talk about this technology is so scalable. And I say, why do I even care? I don't even know what your product does for me. Before that, I don't even know if I have a need that I can take your product in. Why are you talking about something which may or may not be an issue down the line, assuming I take your product, right? So bring it up at the right time. So the adoption hurdle comes in after I've decided to adopt your product, not before. Okay, and then you talk about a transformation. So what is transformation? How does their world change? If you go back to these stories we saw, in the Cinderella world, transformation is she becomes a princess, right? In the Bolo story, transformation is the daughters, right? From wondering if they even have a future. They're dreaming of a future. A doctor is dreaming of being a doctor. In your customer story, what are you creating, right? If I look at the drone story, suddenly that person is transformed into this really powerful being who can wave their hands and make stuff happen, right? How do you transform the world? And essentially, the sale happens in number 8 and number 10, because once they get convinced about the emotional need, if you're selling me peace of mind and I need peace of mind, sold. If you're selling me transformation where I'm in control of things and things just happen as I like them, and that's the proposition you sell me, I can imagine it, sold, right? Okay, so first thing we do is map it, and if you can answer these 10 questions, you already have the building blocks of the story, right? Once you take those 10 questions, you put them back on the same plot, right? You put the question number 1 and 3 on the context, which is, if I go back, one is who is the hero and why do they want? So what is the context? What is the driver? So if I transfer to the business world, a story could often start with, you are a retailer who was hit by COVID and social distancing, right? Your quest is to keep, satisfying your customers in a hybrid, world which demands contextless solutions, maybe contactless payments or contactless shopping, right? What is the challenge? Well, now you can get onto the real challenges. Those could be technology challenges. Those could be challenges of, integration, could be challenges of adoption, whatever the challenges happen to be. Well, if you don't do it, well, the customers have a poor experience, or you lose them completely, and their needs are not satisfied. Well, introduce my solution, introduce a superpower. I can give you something beyond what you asked for, right? Introduce the emotional benefit. My customers feel safe, empowered in this new world, right? What are the hurdles to adoption? Well, I might have to adopt technology. There might be capital expenditure. There might be retraining, right? Change management, whatever it happens to be. Then you talk about, well, how do you help them get around that, right? And then you talk about the new transformed world, right? Evolve to a new hybrid world of retail where you're offering, omni-channel experiences to your customers, happy customers, growing sales, right? That's your transformation or happy ever after, right? You do that, you'll have a very, very powerful story. Now, earlier I talked about, empowerment and transformation. So empowerment is like um, the drone story, right? It empowers me to do something else. Transformation is like the Bolo story, where she becomes a different person, right? Her daughters are suddenly a different person because they have a certain self-image which has changed from, one of being, underprivileged and not knowing what the future is, to somebody who has dreams, who has an exciting future, right? There's another pattern we call love story. One of our clients' favorites. A lot of our clients love this love story. This love story is about customer delight. Today, uh, every business is trying to delight their customers, to win customer love, right? That's a hot theme in entrepreneurship as well. Well, all that is fine, but you can't delight your customers unless your own proposition is strong, unless your own systems are great, unless your own service is flawless, right? So it's about transforming yourselves and your offering, which once you do that, you can delight your customers and innovate and grow and win customer love. That's a love story. Like I said, a lot of our clients are using this, right? And then we use a whole bunch of others, but these are like 3 really really basic and very strong ones to build stories, right? The first one sells problem solving. Second one sells, transforming to a very different, mindset. And third is about customer delight. Okay, and you can apply these to your product using the same formula I gave you. So take those 10 questions, answer those, put them in the right order. You already have. After that, it's just editing and art. Let me show you another example of a story we've built. Same.
Enterprise sales was always challenging. It was always challenging to be noticed, be heard, be understood. And now you even have to go beyond and delight your customers. But how can you delight them without insightful yet delightful stories that touch hearts? A PowerPoint is great to explain details, but a PowerPoint does not touch hearts. You need an engaging video. We can help. We offer a process to build engaging, convincing, highly targeted video stories. Tell a story that makes them the hero. A hero who overcomes big challenges to create a better world. With your offering as their superpower, of course. Leverage our platform-driven service to systematically capture the relevance, impact, and transformational benefits of your solution. And tailor your story for key stakeholders in simple, yet effective videos. Create a memorable impression and win hearts.
Okay. Notice it's a 1-minute story where, we've used the same template. It's exactly the same template which I showed you. We've used it ourselves. And it tells the story of our own product. It's a summary of what I just told you in this session. And you'll notice that, it's able to tell that story very powerfully, applying that same template. So you can use the same, structure. And, I'll just play it again. It's not even a minute. You can see how it follows that same structure that I've been talking about.
Enterprise sales was always challenging. It was always challenging to be noticed, be heard, be understood. And now you even have to go beyond and delight your customers. But how can you delight them without insightful yet delightful stories that touch hearts? A PowerPoint is great to explain details, but a PowerPoint does not touch hearts. You need an engaging video. We can help. We offer a process to build engaging, convincing, highly targeted video stories. Tell a story that makes them the hero. A hero who overcomes big challenges to create a better world. With your offering as their superpower, of course. Leverage our platform-driven service to systematically capture the relevance, impact, and transformational benefits of your solution. And tailor your story for key stakeholders in simple, yet effective videos. Create a memorable impression and win hearts.
So moving on. Okay, I'm going to skip over a few. These are optional slides, but some power tools, because there is something which I want to show you. Okay, this is another story we did for Omnivore, the venture fund. Again, same concept. Ankita, how much time do we have?
Sir, we were about to wind it up by 12. You can take another 5 minutes. We have fewer questions also in the chat box.
Yeah, so I'm going to skip this. I can share the links later, right? But other stuff. But I really want to show at the end. So the important thing in storytelling is, we've talked about emotion, we've talked about imagination. The other point I want to make is, when you deliver facts, deliver them as insights, not data. Okay, and what is the difference? Data is data points. Insight is relevant to your audience. And how do you make it relevant? You fit it into the story structure. So the moment you take that data and you fit it into the structure we just saw, which is as a solution to the problem you've identified over there, or supporting data to that solution, it becomes an insight. Okay, and I'm going to request somebody who's much better at this than me to tell you about this, a master storyteller, about how to combine these three into a powerful message. Somebody you'll probably recognize. Let's watch, and then I'll be happy to take questions.
So Satyamev Jayate is a television show that we did, in which we picked up a lot of social issues and researched as best as we could and then shared that with people. So all of what we were sharing on the show was all factual. However, it was a combination of very hard journalism and storytelling. And because I've always believed that I don't want to convince a person intellectually. I want to touch the person's heart. I want to change how you feel internally about something. I want to touch you, in very, on a gut level. So I'll give an example. The first episode we did was on female feticide. Now, when I start the show, I don't say that, so good, welcome for the first episode and today we're going to talk about female feticide. I don't do that. Because I'm willing to bet that the moment I say today we're going to talk about female feticide, that's when you'll put the TV off. So instead, I start by saying that, I often ask people, who's the most important person in your life? And usually people say, it's my mother. And there's a very good reason for that. And then I speak about motherhood and how each one of us is so deeply and strongly connected with our mother. I talk about my own mother. And I bring you into this emotional state where you're also thinking about your own mother and how important it is to you. And then I say that, but how are we treating our mothers today? Let's take a look, let's meet a mother. And we meet our first guest of the show, who's a lady who's been through 6 abortions in 8 years. Now, I'm not calling her a mahila. I'm calling her a mother. So the way you see her will change dramatically. I've brought you emotionally into that stage where you're thinking about your own mother. So this is the storytelling part of it. Is the facts of her story accurate? Yes, totally. But I've prepared you emotionally to receive it in a different way. So you're now engaged in watching what is happening to a mother. And therefore you're reacting like that. When we, and often our audience, there was a live audience in our show, they never knew what the topic was. So I remember one of our topics was domestic violence. And our audience was all male. And I started the show by saying that, today we have all males in the audience. These are the bodyguards of society, the people who look after us and all. So they were quite thrilled. They didn't know what was coming. And then I said, where do you think our women are most unsafe in society? So each one of them gave me their opinion. They said, at night, raat ko, sunsan, gali mein, they are not safe. Sometimes in public transport, they get teased, etc., etc. So they give different examples of where women are not safe. And I said, even I thought that. Even I thought that. And I have not exposed the topic yet. I said, but how do you find out? So I told my team, go to the nearest hospital and see the women coming in, because a woman who's injured will go to a police station and to a hospital. Police station, she may or may not go. She might not go. Some women are hesitant to go. But hospital, she will go to get herself fixed. So go to the hospital and find out why women have come with injuries. What are the injuries? What is the source of those injuries? And then we discovered in Baba Hospital, which is in Bandra, in a city like Mumbai, which is supposed to be one of the safer cities in India. In Bandra, whereas in the show I had said, jahan Dilwale bhi rehta hai, aur bodyguard bhi rehta hai, aur Rangila bhi rehta hai. The 3 Khans all stay in Bandra. So उस hospital में हम जब गए तो पता लगा कि more than 50 to 60% of the women who were there had come because they were beaten up at home. And so I sum up that entire introduction, which is about 15-20 minutes, in which I say that so our women in our society may or may not be injured in a lonely road or in a bus stop or in a train, but 50% के ऊपर chances है कि घर पे पिटने वाले हैं. That's when the topic locks in. but there is a drama to that storytelling, as you know, and then you're sitting and you want to know more.
Okay, so let me just pause here for questions, and you can see the key lessons, right? You need to get the facts on your side, but you need to get the emotions and the imagination going. Okay, so Ankita, how do we do this for the questions?
Yes, sir. Somebody asking to explain the point number 9. If you can go back to your slides, I can tell what slide it's. It's Aarti Vyas asking it.
Okay. Point number 9. Okay.
Yeah, it's this.
Adoption hurdle. Okay, this is, I won't worry too much about it. Adoption hurdle is about, okay, let's say somebody's decided they want your product or your service. Usually there is an extra hurdle they have to go through. So for example, if you're selling a BI tool, they may need to have somebody on staff, right? They may need to have a data scientist, or they may need to have, you know, somebody who understands cloud technology. If you are talking about, you know, a new workflow tool, they might need to change their business process. They might need to retrain their staff. They might need to, you know, buy some other service alongside, right? So it's something they need in addition to your product to make your product work. Okay. I hope that's clear. And when it's not in a crisp, how do you work on it? So there's 2 questions I see in the question box.
Another question here, Subinder. Somebody is asking the pattern, the Cinderella pattern you showed. Do all good stories have to follow this pattern?
Yes, yes. It's something which works. I mean, you know, you look at Ramayana has the same story arc. You know, at least 90 to 95% of the movies have the same story arc, whether they are, you know, thrillers or rom-coms or any of the genres. Most storybooks have the same story arc. I mean, I talked about fairy tales have the same story arc. So, and I've used this umpteen number of times in business. It works very, very powerfully. The difference really is you might spend less time on certain portions. So for example, if the context or the problem is well understood, just mention it, move on. If it's something which needs a little bit of explaining, then you spend some extra time on it, right? So where you spend time might change, but the story arc remains the same. Okay, and then I see a related question here, which is about the story is not crisp. Well, again, you know, I go back to, if you follow these 10 questions and try to write a one-line answer to each. The problem is that, you know, most entrepreneurs suffer from this thing about, I need to tell them everything. No, you don't need to tell them everything. Just forget out what is the essential thing I need to say. That is enough to get them excited or tease them. There's always more to tell them that can come later. What is it that they need to now to move on to the next level? So for example, if you're talking about the challenges, you don't have to list every single challenge. Just talk about the biggest challenge they have. Okay. And once you do that, really, this will come out with a 1-minute story. Yeah, then you can emphasize, if you have more time, elaborate and emphasize where you need to. If you have less time, you can even cut some stuff out. Okay, and beyond that, I can just say, you know, keep trying, keep working. And the litmus test I use is, this is from Picasso, right? Picasso famously said, when I build a statue, right, and I'm paraphrasing, is like I start taking stuff away till I can't take anything else out. And what's left is perfection. So the mistake that we all make when we're building stories is we'll say, okay, what else can I add in there? Or what else do I need to say? That's the wrong approach. You should look at every sentence and say, can I remove this? And if I remove this, do I lose a lot? If you remove it and it still remains a coherent story, remove it. And you will come up with something which is fantastically crisp. Okay.
So
Any
there's
other
still
questions?
another question on
Yeah.
the same point, adoption hurdle. They say, could you please throw more light on this? He hasn't got the point completely.
So I've already elaborated it. Thing is, when somebody says, look, I want to buy your product now, usually they'll have to do something else, right? Let's say, I want a large monitor. Maybe to do that, I need a different power supply, right? Which has nothing to do with your monitor per se. Or, do I have enough desk space? Or so am I ready to be able to use your product? Okay, so very often people talk about my product is easy to use. That's great. It's easy to use. That's great. But that's an adoption hurdle. That's not an essential thing. So the way I look at it is, will I buy a product just because it's easy to use? Or will I take a product I like and then maybe reject it because it's not easy to use? That's a subtle but a very important distinction, right? If a product is useless for me, but it's very easy to use, forget it. I'll not even consider it. I'll not buy a product because it's easy to use. So don't sell me that it's an easy to use product, right? It's an adoption hurdle. Once I've decided I like the functionality your product brings me, I like what it can do for me, then the question comes, oh, is it easy to use? And if it's not easy to use, I might say, okay, it's not worth it. Let's leave it. Right? That's the important point about an adoption hurdle. It's not a reason to buy, but it can become a reason to reject.
Okay.
Okay.
So when it looks like all the questions are covered.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so yeah, it was really a wonderful session, Subinder. I mean, how to communicate like a leader, the points that you covered to build a powerful story, and importance of adding emotional component in the story, and the real examples like the lady story, the Cinderella story, and the Amir Khan stock. It was really useful, and we are seeing in the chat box that the session was really useful for all the entrepreneurs gathered here. We would like to host more such session with you, Subinder. Many thanks for this wonderful talk, and I would like to be, thankful for you for this. To all the participants as well, thanks all for joining, and I hope you gain the best of this session. And this video will be uploaded on our YouTube also. I'll send out the link to all the registered participants. You can just go through that. Wonderful, Subinder. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Ankita.